Welcome to this Georgia DOT virtual presentation and question and answer session as part of the public hearing open house, also known as a PHOH, for the proposed I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange project, which will provide new direct interstate access and offer congestion relief for nearby interchanges. I'm Kyle Collins with GDOT Communications, your moderator for today's event. On behalf of Georgia DOT and the entire project team, we appreciate you joining us today. Today's virtual session is specific to the proposed I-20 at Old Mill Road interchange as the project continues to advance through the environmental and design process. The adjacent GDOT projects, which are US 278 widening and the I-20 at Frontage Road, have already been awarded to a design build team and are currently under construction. It's important to note that the GDOT roadway projects and the Stanton Springs North development are separate endeavors. Any questions about Stanton Springs should be directed to the State Department of Economic Development and Rivian at the following email address, which is rivian@georgia.org. Again, that's rivian@georgia.org. The purpose of today's virtual presentation and Q&A is to share key details about the latest design concept and environmental assessment, also known as the EA document for the I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange project. Please keep in mind this is a preliminary design concept, so it's not yet finalized. All the materials that you see today on your screen are subject to change. One of the big ways you can make your voice heard is by submitting comments about this proposed interchange. We're going to explain all the ways you can do that later in this session. So to start with, let's go over some tips for navigating this live virtual event. Today's session is designed to give the public the opportunity to learn more about I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange and ask questions directly to the project team and subject matter experts. For the best experience, make sure you have a reliable Wi-Fi or wired internet connection. But if you do get disconnected, don't worry about it. You can always log back into the session. Closed captioning is also available in multiple languages. To turn that on, simply navigate to the bottom right of your screen to that closed caption icon. To change the language, click the gear icon and select Captions/Subtitles to choose your preferred language. After we review some live virtual event tips, we're going to start with a pre-recorded presentation from Kathy Ahmed with Georgia DOT's Office of Alternative Delivery. Kathy's our project manager for this work, followed by a question and answer session. To submit a question or comment, click on the blue Ask a Question button on your screen. This is going to open a text box where you can type your question or comment. When finished, click the send button. You can begin submitting now or at any time during this hour and a half live virtual session using that Microsoft Teams live Q&A feature. Please note that questions will not be visible until published by the moderator. To make this a successful and informative event, we have a few ground rules to cover. This will ensure that we maximize your time and answer all these questions accurately and thoughtfully. As an audience member, you're going to be in listen-only mode throughout the event, which means you're going to be on mute. All questions and comments must be submitted through that Ask a Question feature that we just talked about in the previous slide. Today's session is going to be recorded, and questions and comments will be part of the official public record. Please keep questions concise, appropriate, and specific to this project, which again is the I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange proposal. Project team may group similar questions together, and we will not repeat questions and answers until we have been through all the questions. We don't get to your question today, specifically if it involves a more detailed or technical type response. Don't worry about it. We'll do our best to respond within 1 to 2 days. But the only way we can do that is to have your contact information, so make sure that you submit that in the chat along with your question or comment. Lastly, if we have any public officials joining the session today, make sure you send us your name and office in the chat for our records. So next, we're going to go to Kathy Ahmed, who again is our project manager with GDOT's Office of Alternative Delivery. Take it away, Kathy.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you to everyone for joining us today to learn more about the I-20 at County Road 249 Old Mill Road Interchange project, PI number 0018361. Let's begin. The I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange project was initially presented during the Public Information Open House, or PIOH, in June of 2022 as part of the US 278 widening and Old Mill Road improvement projects. This proposed interchange will provide new direct access to I-20 at Old Mill Road in Morgan and Walton counties and will provide congestion relief for anticipated future traffic volumes. At this time, the updated project design concept, environmental assessment or EA, and mitigation plan is available for review and public comment. We are hosting a public hearing open house comment period and accepting comments until Monday, May 1st. As a part of the proposed project design, a new bridge will be constructed to the west of the existing Old Mill Road overpass, and the old bridge will be removed. Old Mill Road will also be realigned to the west to align to the new interchange location. The portion of Old Mill Road in the vicinity of the new interchange will be widened from a 2-lane section to a 4-lane section with a raised median. Roundabouts will be constructed at the I-20 ramp terminals. The design also includes pedestrian sidewalks and bike lanes. The existing Old Mill Road just north of I-20 will be changed to Old Mill Way, and a cul-de-sac will be constructed allowing local access for property owners. As a result of public input and further assessment, the list of improvements was refined and may look different from what you may have viewed at the PHOH last June. The latest design concept now includes the addition of bike lanes along the proposed realigned Old Mill Road from the northern roundabout up to the intersection with the frontage road. A 5-foot sidewalk is also proposed along the same segment of road. However, south of the northern roundabout down to the southern roundabout at the eastbound I-20 off and on ramps, there will be no separate bike lanes. Along this segment, the sidewalk will be widened to 10 feet. Also, the previously proposed cul-de-sac on the existing Old Mill Road south of I-20 has been removed. At this time, the preliminary assessment of environmental impacts is complete. The findings can be found in the approved EA document on the project website. As mentioned, the concept design has been updated since the PHOH in June 2022. The latest preliminary concept display offers a more detailed design of the proposed project. You can see here that the new alignment of the Old Mill Road will tie into the frontage road, shown in blue, on the north side of I-20. The southern section of the new alignment will tie into the original Old Mill Road. You can also see the proposed design and location of the roundabouts at each of the I-20 ramp terminals. This preliminary concept display is available in the virtual meeting room on the project website and under the resource section on the project website. Please take a moment to visit the web address you see on your screen for a closer look. When you are reviewing the concept displays, keep in mind the details are subject to change as the proposed project moves through the design build process. If you have questions about this preliminary concept display for the proposed project, we encourage you to ask our subject matter experts during our question and answer portion of this virtual meeting. This proposed typical section offers a street-level perspective of the preliminary design of this project. Here you can see the addition of the bike lanes and sidewalks to the proposed design. As with the concept display, this proposed typical section is available in the virtual meeting room on the project's website. Again, please take a moment to visit the web address you see on your screen for a closer look. As part of the public hearing open house comment period, we encourage you to submit comments following your review of the updated proposed project design concept and any areas located within the project limits that may be important to you. This proposed interchange project brings several benefits to this corridor of I-20. Without this project, traffic congestion is projected to worsen at the adjacent interchanges and roadways. Traffic operations on I-20 in the vicinity would deteriorate during peak hours. This proposed project offers several benefits to mitigate these issues. It will not only offer direct access to an interstate system, but also provide congestion relief and divert traffic away from other local roads and intersections. In addition, it will improve operations to accommodate future traffic volumes. The proposed design also benefits pedestrians and bicyclists with the addition of sidewalks and bike lanes. As you can see on the project timeline, the proposed project is going through a second public comment period, or PHOH. This is your opportunity to review and submit comments on the updated design concept, environmental assessment document, and mitigation plan, along with any other areas or resources located within the project limits that may be important to you. The next phase will be the environmental decision document approval in the third quarter of this year, followed by the selection of the design build team in the fourth quarter. Finally, construction is anticipated to begin in quarter 1 or quarter 2 of 2024. Please keep in mind these dates are subject to change. And that concludes our presentation for the proposed I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange project. On the project website, we encourage you to visit the virtual meeting room platform to view these project resources on your own time. You can view the latest concept layouts, anticipated right-of-way needs, the environmental assessment document, as well as other project details that you might find at an in-person Georgia DOT open house. Once you have viewed the materials, you will also have the opportunity to provide comments on the proposed project. We will also offer an in-person public hearing open house tomorrow, April 20th at the South Walton Community Center. If you have any family, friends, or neighbors that are not able to join us today, we hope you tell them to stop by. All the information presented here today and updated displays and resources that are on the project website will also be available tomorrow at the in-person open house. Again, thank you for joining our virtual presentation, and we look forward to hearing from you during our question and answer session in just a few minutes.
Thanks for that, Kathy. So as everybody can see, there's a ton of material available for your review and comment on this interchange project. So to accommodate this, GDOT has dedicated a website showcasing the latest project design, the environmental assessment, mitigation plan, and a lot more. The project website, which you can see on your screen, also houses what's known as a virtual meeting room. Here you can access the same informational displays that would be available at an in-person open house event, which, like Kathy mentioned, we're also having tomorrow there in Social Circle. When you first enter the virtual meeting room, you're going to be greeted by Natalie Dale, who's our statewide spokesperson with GDOT at the welcome station. Natalie's going to provide great overview of the virtual meeting platform and some of the best ways that you can navigate this space, so definitely consider starting there. From there, you can click on each station at the top of the screen for an in-depth look at the project details, including the ever-important station where you can submit your comments. This is also very mobile friendly. GDOT encourages comments on any aspect of this Old Mill Road interchange project. The comment station provides two methods for submitting those comments through the end of the comment period, which is Monday, May 1st. You can also send an email, leave a voicemail, or mail in your feedback by using the contact information shown here. In addition to the virtual session, we're also hosting an in-person PHOH tomorrow, which is April 20th from 4 to 7 at the South Walton Community Center at 550 Fairplay Drive Northeast there in Social Circle. During this open house, you're going to be able to view these preliminary concept displays, project information, ask questions of our subject matter experts, and leave a comment. Project materials can also be viewed in person through April 30th by visiting GDOT's Madison office. That's over at 1570 Bethany Road. Most folks should be familiar with that location. If you need any accommodations or require materials in an accessible format, please contact our District 2 East Central Georgia Planning and Programming Liaison, which is Ellen Wright. Ellen can be reached at 478-553-3407 or at Ellen's email at ewright, WRIGHT, @dot.ga.gov. Okay, so this brings us closer to our question and answer session. For those who may have joined late, we're going to run through some of the tips and the ground rules to make sure we or as informative as possible, and we make a valuable use of your time. Closed captioning is available in multiple languages today. To turn that on, navigate to the bottom right of your screen. You're going to remain in listen-only mode, which means you're going to be muted during the session through to 1:30, but questions can be submitted at any time. This session is also going to be recorded. All the questions and comments will become part of the official public record as well. Please keep those questions concise, appropriate, and specific to this project, which is I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange. Project team also may group similar questions together. We can't get to your question today, specifically if it's a super detailed technical type question. We'll do our best to respond within 1 to 2 days. But to do that, we got to have your contact information. So if we see anonymous, we're not going to have a way to get back with you. So make sure you leave us your contact. Also, for public officials that are logging in, make sure you leave your name and office title in the chat for our records. Okay, so we're transitioning over to the Q&A portion of the event, and to help me MC the submitted questions, I'm going to call on Marlo Clowers. She's a program manager within GDOT's Office of Alternative Delivery, who, along with Kathy, are managing these projects here in this area. So, all right, Marlo, see if we got any questions yet. I don't see any outright, Marlo. But just to kick one to you, Marlo, folks that visit the website, they heard in Kathy's presentation about design build. Could you just kind of talk the citizens through what that means and how that's an innovative way to deliver a project such as I-20 at Old Mill?
That is an important point. And I will try to provide some information about what GDOT means by design build. So the design build, delivering a project by the design build method allows time saving efficiencies, as well as it can provide some design efficiencies. What it does is GDOT enters into contract with one entity that performs the design and the construction of the project. So it brings the contractor into the plan development process earlier, so that we can get that construction perspective as the designs are being complete. So design build is another tool in GDOT's toolbox, a method of delivering projects where we want to emphasize either some aspect of efficiency of schedule or innovation of design. So thank you, Kyle, for that question.
Thanks, Marlo. And we're still waiting on some comments to come in from some of our viewers. So again, don't hesitate. We'll take them all and try to get you a good answer today. So next, Marlo, just kind of walking generally through that concept display. Folks are seeing and hearing about 2 roundabouts. Kind of what's the reasoning behind us going with that versus some other intersection treatments as we've got it laid out?
So that is a reasonable question to ask. GDOT looks at every type of interchange and examines it for the best type of interchange or any intersection, including a roundabout. I will ask, however, Ty Denning, if you can tell us some about what went into the consideration of the roundabouts in this project. Ty?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we did look at several different options for the intersection control at the interchange and at the ramp terminals there. Based on some of the traffic patterns and the turning movements and stuff like that that would be turning on to or coming from I-20, we found that the most efficient method of servicing that traffic and those volumes was by implementing this roundabout. And one of the things that roundabouts are really great at, as opposed to a signal, is you're not really waiting at them. You get up there, if there's a gap in the traffic, you get in your lane and you go. So they're very efficient. They are anticipated to cut down on some of the anticipated congestion through that area. And in addition to that, they're much safer than a traditional intersection. I believe that there's something like only a third as many conflict points at a roundabout versus an intersection. So safety and efficiency are some of the primary reasons for using it. Another reason is that we are anticipating a lot of truck traffic here. So these roundabouts have been specifically designed to handle some of the larger trucks that are going to be anticipated in this area. And we've actually designed it so that those trucks can go through the roundabout side by side if need be. So you won't have any trucks, won't have trailers swinging into the adjacent lanes and causing any issues with these intersections. Thanks for the question.
Definitely a good answer there, Ty, because I know we get a lot of comments on social media about the size of roundabouts. These are going to be full scale, and like Ty mentioned, be able to handle multiple trucks at one time once implemented. So, and I do believe we have one question that we're waiting on publishing here. Just checking to see when that one drops. Looks like we might still be waiting for a second. And Marlo, if you don't mind, I'm going to kick this one right back to Ty as well. It's kind of a design question. Ty, what's the impetus behind us adding the sidewalks and the bike lanes? I know that's something that we mentioned that's been an update since we went to the public last year at the open house we did in June. Could you just kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. So the frontage road project, which you can is shown in blue on the screen there, that project is currently being constructed. There is a 10-foot multi-use path planned along that frontage road there that would serve as two-way traffic for both pedestrians and bicycles, as well as some other approved forms of transportation. So we are already constructing that trail or that path right now. We always take into consideration adding sidewalks on these projects wherever there is a potential for the need for multimodal transport or pedestrian connectivity. Specifically, we look for areas that might be experiencing large growth or a lot of development. This area certainly seems to indicate that there will be a good amount of growth through here. So really the reason for doing that was twofold. We wanted to provide we wanted to provide sort of an extension of that frontage road project for the pedestrian connectivity, and we wanted to do it in a safe manner. The existing bridge is being removed and replaced with a wider bridge that would have actual sidewalks. So if people want to cross the road, it's a much safer condition, or excuse me, if they want to cross the interstate on that bridge, it will be a much safer condition for those pedestrians. And in addition to that, we want to start somewhere with this pedestrian connectivity. So this project would serve us as sort of the basis of that connectivity, and it can then be expanded in the future for whatever might be coming down the road here. So again, great question. Thank you.
Good deal. Appreciate it, Ty. So looks like we do have our first question in. So thank you, Jennifer. So Marlo, Jennifer is curious about some traffic studies. Her question is, have there been any traffic studies on the added traffic to I-20 eastbound or westbound?
That's an excellent question. Definitely, there have been some studies done. I will ask Yop if you could talk about the studies that we've done on I-20, or the studies associated with this project.
Yes, thank you for this question. Traffic studies on I-20 has been studied. We examined the future years 2025 and 2045 as open year and design year for this interchange. And the studies included all the existing traffic, future growth rates, and all the additional traffic for all the economic developments in this area. This is a common way of traffic forecasting that follows the GDOT guidelines. And all our volumes on I-20 and the entire study area were approved by GDOT at June 9th, 2022. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Jock. Okay. Looks like Jennifer has another question for us here. The next one, Marlo, is, are there any 404 permits required with this project?
That sounds like an environmental question. And so I will hand that off to Amber Phillips to discuss the 404 permit. Amber?
Thank you. That is a good question. So as part of our project, we do expect waters of the U.S. to be impacted. And as such, we would be applying for a 404 permit. We're always looking to try to avoid and minimize all impacts as we develop the project. And of course, we'll continue to do so, but we definitely expect that a 404 permit would be required. Thank you for the question.
Appreciate that, Amber. So still waiting on a few more to come in. Jennifer, thanks for kind of kicking things off for our viewers. On that environmental side of things, Marlo, folks may have heard some chatter about a new protected bat species in the area and may be curious about how that would impact some of the GDOT work, specifically when we're talking about bridges out in this kind of wooded area. Anything we want to say as far as that bat goes, Marlo, and how we're going to protect it going forward?
That is a very thoughtful question. GDOT certainly tries to protect the environment and all the species around the projects that we build. I will ask Amber, who I know knows a lot about this tricolored bat, if you can tell us some about GDOT's initiatives to protect it.
Yeah, thank you very much. We definitely know that bats were a topic in this area. And so, as you may have heard, or if you have not heard, the tricolored bat is expected to be listed as endangered coming up this September. So as such, we've completed some studies and expect to put in some special provisions and standard specifications for the contractor to follow. And those would include things like some restrictions on when we could clear trees, times of the year we can work in the culverts, and just measures put in place, such as lighting during construction and final lighting that would be constructed on this project. And that lighting would be facing downward so that it's not affecting the bats who are flying around. And so those are some measures that we're expecting to put in place on this project to protect the tricolored bat and any bats in the area. Thank you so much for the question.
Good deal. So still waiting on a few to come in, but we've got some ideas on what y'all may be curious about. So next one, folks looking at the concept layout, Marlo, they're seeing that rest area kind of on the bottom left of their screen. They're seeing the merge point there and the off ramp to this new proposed interchange, or they kind of look like they're one. Could we just walk folks through the study and analysis that went into that design proposal and why we think that is the safest and most efficient?
Yes, Kyle, I think that is a great use of time. That rest area is an important part of the transportation network that GDOT also wants to ensure that access to and from is accommodated for. So I will ask Jonathan Langley, since we have the layout here on the screen, to sort of walk through what we're doing here and relation to the rest area.
Thank you, Marlo. I'd love to do that. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'd like to get to the idea where we talk about the rest area here. But since we have some time and gives you some more time to ask some questions, one additional thing that I'd like to do is help you decode what in the world you're looking at on the screen. When you look at one of these layouts, we call them roll plots sometimes, layouts, concept layouts, you may hear different terms. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you're seeing, and then I'm going to make my way towards talking about the ramp and the rest area that we were just talking about in this location here. So what you see here, the area that we're talking about with the interchange is going to be towards the center of the screen. Right now, it's a little bit over towards the right. And there's a bunch of different lines, a bunch of different colors. And so what I think I'd like to do, if we can zoom in towards the interchange just to start, I'm going to point out what some of these different colors mean, what the different lines mean, so that when you're looking at this, you have a better understanding of what you actually see. And then bonus points, if you go and go to the GDOT website and you pull up this plot yourself, you can then zoom into this, you can look at this on your own, and you'll have a better understanding of what it is that you're working with here. So the first thing that we'll point out is the gray shape, the light gray shape is the roadway. So that's what you see kind of in the center of the screen here when we talk about the ramps and when we talk about the bridge and the roundabouts, all of that, the main color that you see right there, the gray, is the roadway. And so the other interesting things are the colors that are outside that. The first thing that I'll draw attention to is what looks like yellow lines along the outside of the roadway. Those yellow lines are actually the sidewalks. And so when Kathy gave the presentation earlier, you saw what's called a typical section. So that shows as if you're standing on the road looking forward, you would have seen the sidewalks along the outside of that roadway. Well, that on this plot is shown in yellow. So those yellow lines there. When we get to the roundabouts, you see that those yellow lines go through different areas. They cross through the roadways there. And then the orange shapes that you see are going to be medians. So that's not the part of the pavement that you would traditionally be driving on. It would be slightly raised with a kind of a curb. And so the sidewalk, as you can see, goes through those orange areas or those raised median areas. You may see green lines at the outside or the inside of some of the gray shapes, and those are going to be your edges of the roadway. So the inner or the outer edges of the roadway where people will be driving. And then if we were really close, and I don't know that we're going to zoom in this far, you would also be able to see some lighter lines on the outside of those roadways. And those are the shoulders. So the area outside of the driving space, we call those shoulders, and that's where it's like a safety space. If you were to need to pull over, you could pull over on the shoulder, but that provides some additional protection. Let's see, so outside of the roadway, we also have other lines that you may be looking at. So the first ones that I'll point out are these light blue lines, the cyan color. They're dashed in a lot of places, that's right, with the cursor. So those light blue lines are the property boundaries. And they show our understanding based on the survey that we've done of where these properties are, the limits. And then you see oftentimes there's a label, right now they're in yellow, that says what parcel that is and the name of the owner of that parcel, that piece of land. In addition to that, related to the properties and these lines in cyan, you also see a red line. And those red lines are the anticipated right-of-way line. And so if you were to have any questions about the right-of-way, what areas of a property need to be purchased, you could reach out to us, you come to our public meeting in person tomorrow, or you could even ask it here. And we've got the experts here to be able to talk to that. So let me see. I think those are the main things that I would want to point out. You do see some blue and purple lines on here. Those are environmental features, streams or wetlands, things like that. And obviously, we want to be aware of all of the things that are in the area there. I guess I didn't talk about the picture, which is back in the very back behind everything, that is an aerial image, a snapshot from above of what the existing roadway looks like. And so, for example, if you were comparing, you can see where the proposed bridge is, offset to the left in this layout, offset to the left of the existing bridge. And that just gives you a perspective of kind of the size and the location of where everything is. And all of this is to scale, as we say. So it's drawn in the size that is in correspondence or appropriate to the picture that you see on there. Everything is the same. I think I'll point out one other thing, and then let's go. Let's take a look at that walkthrough and the rest area like we were talking about. So if we can scroll towards the top, as if we're going towards the frontage road, and a little bit to the left, you start to see this big blue shape over here on the left. And I think Ty has already mentioned this in some of his discussions as well. But that blue shape is another project. So the project we're talking about here today, the Old Mill Road Interchange project, is tying into another project that has already been let for construction. And so that blue project is underway now. And you can see how this project that we're talking about today ties into that one there. All right, you see a stoplight signal there. We could go on describing this plot for a long time, just helping you to decode it. But the main goal here was to hopefully help you understand when you look at this, what are you actually looking at? And maybe I'll think of some other things to share as we continue to go. All right, so on the bottom left of your screen right now, you see the aerial image of the rest area. And so the existing condition in this location is that that rest area currently exits directly onto the interstate. So say you were driving along and you were to pull into this rest area, and you were to go inside, get back in your vehicle, now you need to get back onto the interstate. In the existing condition, what you would do is you would exit that ramp, and you see it in the picture here, the aerial image, and go right back onto the interstate. And the situation that we have in this specific project is that by adding a new interchange, you end up with a ramp coming from the rest area very close to where we need to have a new interchange. And because of those lengths there, these are too close to each other to be able to have separate ramps. And as a part of our concept development process, we look at a variety of different alternatives. And as we looked at the different alternatives for an interchange in this location, it became very apparent that the safest configuration for all vehicles was to allow that traffic to merge together on this ramp before going back onto the interstate. And so what you see here, you see the little circle with a number in it. That's the number of lanes. So where the first circle is on the left, that's an exit from the interstate. So you have one lane where vehicles are coming in from the interstate. And I don't know, can we go in, zoom in a click or two so we can see where these lanes are? That's right, thank you. So then you have another number one bullet saying there's another lane coming from the rest area. Well, if you were to look very closely, you see that each of those two movements get their own lane. So they're not immediately being forced to merge together. One lane from the interstate, one lane from the rest area goes to two lanes on the ramp. And so each of those get their own lane and are not forced to merge together in any way. There's plenty of distance between where these two come together and the roundabout if there is any changing of lanes that were to need to happen, but that's not a requirement. So anyone leaving, a vehicle leaving the rest area and going back to the interstate is just going to go up this ramp. They have their own dedicated lane moving right into that roundabout, back around the roundabout, and then to the right off our screen here over back onto the interstate. So it's going to be a very seamless movement to be able to do that. They have their own dedicated lane. They're not going to be forced to merge with other vehicles as a result of that ramp there. And that does save some of the alternatives where if these were, an alternative could be that merging or weaving was happening on the interstate, which would not be as safe as a condition as what we're showing in this configuration here. When Ty was talking about these roundabouts a few minutes ago, he made the point that with a roundabout, you do not have a signal. So therefore, vehicles don't need to stop at this location. It's a yield condition. So you find your gap and you move right through the roundabout. So I'm going to pause for a moment, and maybe we get a chance to come back and look at some of the other movements in the future. But I think, Kyle, I'll see if we've had any questions come in while I've been talking, give a chance to see if anybody has anything to say. Hopefully, though, that helps everyone to understand a little bit about what's going on in the rest area, about the individual lanes that are occurring for each of those movements and how they interface with this roundabout and with the interstate. Kyle?
Appreciate it. I know that was helpful for folks. It can be kind of busy looking at these map layouts, so being able to walk through and break down point by point what they're looking at, I know is very vital, and it's good information to have, as well as what we talked about with, kind of why we're doing the ramps that way. So I've actually got an environmental one that I'm going to kick straight to Amber. Part of the reason we're here today, one of the main reasons with the PHOH, is this environmental assessment. Amber, could you just kind of walk us through what that is, what it means, and why it's so important to get published and have a thorough analysis?
Certainly, I'd love to. So as part of our project, we are documenting the proposed project, the need for the project, the termini of the project and why that termini makes sense, any range of alternatives that were evaluated in the environmental, and we are evaluating the environmental impacts from both the preferred and the no build action alternative. And so all of that is summarized in this EA document, as well as the environmental resources evaluated. And those include, our natural resources, our streams and our waters and our species, our cultural resources. So if there are any historic properties, if there are anything out there that's important from an archaeological standpoint, and our social and physical environment, of course, any areas that are important to the public. We'll look at the required right-of-way for the project and summarize our outreach efforts and any coordination that we did with agencies. All of that is documented in one environmental assessment so that we can disclose those at meetings such as the one we're having today and the one that we're having tomorrow. And that document is available right now for public review and comment. And you can find that in the meeting room that Kyle went over at the beginning of this meeting. And so that's what we're trying to document. And as a result, we'll do a final document to disclose, of course, the outreach efforts that we're making today and any changes that are made as a result. Thank you for the question.
Awesome. So we're going to transition. Amber set it up well, given the background on the EA, basically a reminder of where you can find this information. So a simple search of US 278 and Old Mill Road improvements is going to bring you right here. That's going to be the first project. You can also get to it directly from our dot.ga.gov website. So we're scrolling through, you're getting your basic project information. This is easily accessible on mobile as well as the desktop. You'll see the tab to enter the virtual meeting room, which is why we're here today. So you're going to click on that. And that's that welcome station that we talked about earlier in the presentation. So that's Natalie Dell's avatar. She's got a very informative video. You have project handout. You have a fact sheet, a reminder of why we're here, what the goals and benefits are with this work, and any adjacent projects. I know Jonathan alluded to the frontage road, and also there's some improvements going on at 278, which we're not here to talk about today, but those two separate projects are currently moving in construction. You see the top tabs there. That's how you can find what you're looking for. You have the environmental assessment. If we want to click on that, that's how you locate that document. And there's Amber's avatar in the virtual meeting space, and all this is done to mirror that in-person experience and try to reach folks in an additional way. We kicked off this probably full scale, back in 2020 when we weren't doing in-person stuff for obvious reasons, and it's been a robust way for us to get more engagement and basically just have a resting site there for folks to visit at their leisure, because not everybody can make a specific meeting on one specific day at one specific time. So you could click on the environmental assessment, you could click on the plan mitigation plan, and all that can be easily downloaded to your device. You'll see a tab at the top right of your screen once you click on those locations. So also the public comment, if we want to click on that next. And there is me, my little self. That's my avatar there. So you can print off the comment card if you wanted to mail one in, or you could do the online comment card, which is to the right of that comment form. That's a simple, 3, 4, 5 minute process just to leave some basic information and get your comment onto the official record. And all those comments will be responded to. Typically, it takes us 45 to 60 days, and everybody who left their contact information is going to get that letter, and that'll also be published on this official website, once it's finalized. So if folks are curious about what people were asking about, or if you ask the question, you can also kind of view things there. So very helpful. And Amber, I may kind of put you on the spot here. I know we talked about this before. Could you kind of expand on this virtual meeting room and our whole expansive virtual public involvement that we've really made more robust the last few years, and why we think that's a good way to reach the public?
Yeah, certainly. So we've definitely worked hard over the last few years, and it started before COVID. So we actually started the process and conducted a few virtual public outreach efforts that were an early version of what you see today. As a result, if you go to our comment card, we asked for feedback from the public about ways we can improve meetings. And we were seeing that citizens of the state of Georgia had a desire for us to go virtual, allow a time period that they could ask virtual questions, get their responses live, instead of having to just submit comments and waiting while we respond to a large number of comments, so that they would be able to mirror what we were doing at an in-person meeting if they couldn't make that day, or they actually, so everyone could have the opportunity to, as you mentioned, view the materials at their leisure. So we worked very hard to update our website platform so that we could offer all the same materials that you would see at an in-person meeting at all of the citizens of Georgia's convenience, and that they could go back and look at all of the information as the project develops. And we can easily update that website for citizens to get updated information more quickly as the project progresses. So that's one of the definitely the positives. And that as a result of that, we've also been able to update how we advertise and send out notifications to our meetings, which have also improved. But if anyone listening today, or if you check out this website at a later date, definitely provide your feedback for ways that, if you see anything that we can improve upon, we're always looking to make updates and changes and improvements with, especially with new technologies that may be out there. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Amber. And Marlo, while we're in your room, could you walk us through what the proposed project schedule is for this work at Old Mill?
Yes, certainly, Kyle. So as we've mentioned, we're here tonight at our public hearing open house. That's part of the environmental process. And we're also doing a lot of design work, conceptual design work in the background. And we're also preparing our procurement documents. And we're currently anticipating selecting a design build team in the fourth quarter of this calendar year. And we do expect to start construction in quarter one or quarter two of next year. There's a design aspect of that has to be completed before construction is started, once that design build team is selected. And then once the construction starts in quarter one or two of 2024, we do expect currently that construction would be complete by the third quarter of 2025. So that is a great question.
Thanks, Marlo. And we're just going to kind of hang out in that virtual meeting room for a little bit, still waiting on a few more submitted questions. Just generally, folks saw the slide in Kathy's presentation about what's changed from June when we had the PHOH. Marlo, could we just kind of expand on that, for basically what's been updated since that time with what we're bringing to the public today?
Yes, Kyle. So we did take feedback from that public information open house that was held last year. And the design concepts were updated to reflect a lot of the input, as well as the additional studies that have been conducted since that meeting last year. But I will ask Jonathan to talk about some of the changes from the meeting that was held last year.
Thanks, Marlo. I'd be happy to do that. And so we heard Ty talk a little bit about this in the conversation earlier, but some of the latest additions include bike lanes and pedestrian facilities along the roadway there. I think one thing that I'll point out as we talk about this is that we do come to you at different points in the project so we can hear the feedback, so that we have time to incorporate that feedback before everything is finalized and before it goes to construction. So at this point, as the PHOH, this is not the first time that we've had the opportunity to hear from you and to share our design and what's going on here. And so from that high level, what we would have done, what we did was listen to the feedback that we got early in that PHOH that Marlo talked about, and then incorporate that information into our designs. Meanwhile, and Marlo referenced this, meanwhile, there is additional design, there are additional analyses and other things that are going on the design side behind the scenes as we get closer and closer to the beginning of that construction. So everything is developing. Just like any process, as you move along, things get more detailed, they get more refined. And so that's another thing. If you were to look at the layouts that we have on the website now, you would see a greater level of refinement. There are more details included in the layouts. There is a greater level of accuracy at this point than there would have been in the past, because every day, every week, every month that goes by, we're putting more effort into getting closer to a final product. And then Marlo also talked about that design build process. And so there is yet more design to be done before that construction happens. Marlo shared the schedule with us a few minutes ago and talked about selecting that contractor that would come on board. The final design comes on board at the same time as that, and they'll take the design from where it is at this point and take that across the finish line. So we're at a point partway through the process and intentionally reaching out to you now so that we can hear from you, so that we can get your feedback, and so that where appropriate, things get incorporated, like what we talked about here. Other areas, and maybe Ty, if you don't mind, I think I'll throw it to you just to talk a little bit more about some of the specific design elements. I think that there were some adjustments that happened along Old Mill Road, and maybe some of the more finer tuned things that got adjusted between our previous layout and what we have now, those refinements that I was just talking about a minute ago. So Ty, I hope you don't mind. I'd like to throw it to you just to see if there's any other insights that you have to add to this part of the conversation.
Sure thing. So I wasn't sure, Jonathan, if you had mentioned one of the changes I know that has been made here. If you could pan the display just up just a little bit here, you'll see that there's that little black circle there. That is a proposed cul-de-sac. So the existing Old Mill Road is going to be removed. Portions of the existing Old Mill Road are going to be removed. And so from that cul-de-sac south, and across the interstate, Old Mill Road is going to be removed. And one of the changes that you'll see here is that we had also proposed a cul-de-sac on the south side of I-20. But after looking into that a little bit more, you can see that, most of that land is vacant currently. There's really only one property owner there. There wasn't necessarily a need to maintain that road that would have, in essence, just been a dead end road. So that is one of the changes, is that we are removing that portion of Old Mill Road south of the interstate up to the point where the new project ties into the existing road. So all of those residents along Old Mill Road, north of the interstate there, it's kind of hard to see because we do have a sort of a clip out up there, but that road is going to be maintained and access to those residents will be maintained. And they can, obviously make a safe turnaround at that cul-de-sac. I'm trying to think of any of the other changes. You'd already mentioned the sidewalks, the addition of the sidewalks. But I think that's one of the major changes is the removal of that of Old Mill Road south of the interstate there. The other thing that we could potentially bring up is that understanding that we do, since we're moving Old Mill Road and it's still going to be named Old Mill Road, we had to figure out what to do with the name of the portion of Old Mill Road, existing Old Mill Road, that was going to be staying there. So that road name is going to change. Currently, what we currently believe the road is going to be named will be Old Mill Way. People that do live along that road will have an address change. They will be contacted about this. And a lot of this will be worked out in the background, both through the post office and through some other government agencies. We are asking for feedback back on the naming of that road. So if you guys have any opinions on that, we would welcome your input. And unless you can think of anything else, I believe that is the majority of what has changed.
Thanks, Ty. And while you're hot and while we had the concept display still up, could you talk us through that teardrop look? Kind of looks like that's the appearance of those roundabouts and how that may differ from a normal roundabout folks would see at a typical intersection on the state highway system.
Sure, Kyle. So functionally, well, first of all, we call these teardrop roundabouts, and the biggest difference that you can see if you look at it is that each one of these roundabouts doesn't go in a complete circle. Most roundabouts, you can go, if you want to make a U-turn, you could just go around in a complete circle. So functionally, these roundabouts function just like any other roundabout, except for the fact that you can't make a U-turn at each one of these intersections. In order to make a U-turn, though, because these two roundabouts are operating in tandem, they sort of operate, with each other. In order to make those a U-turn movement, if you were coming up Old Mill Road, so you were coming from the south and going north, you would go through the intersection, go to the next roundabout, make a U-turn there, and then come back and proceed the other direction. That movement, just based on the spacing of the intersections and the speeds that we were anticipating there, that movement will probably take about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute to make a U-turn. So, it might be confusing to some folks initially, like, how do I make a U-turn? Well, you'll just go to the next roundabout and then make your U-turn and proceed back, the opposite direction. But functionally, there's no difference with these roundabouts. The great thing about roundabouts is that you only have to look for traffic coming from your left. There's not going to be anybody coming from the other direction, so your head's not on a swivel as much at roundabouts in general. And they again, they're just a little bit safe. They are quite a bit safer than other intersections, but they also allow you to focus your attention on just one direction of traffic. So hopefully that answers your question, Kyle.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Still waiting on a few more to come in from the viewers. Y'all don't be shy there. Marlo, next one, I'm going to kind of fire one off. Folks are always curious about right-of-way impacts and when they may be contacted if they see their property on this map. Could we just kind of walk folks through what that right-of-way process is and kind of that high-level schedule?
Yes, Kyle, that is an important part of the whole process, I know, especially to the public. And so I will ask Phil Copeland. Phil, can you give us some details on the right-of-way process and how it's acquired?
Yes, Marlo, thank you very much for that opportunity. I'll start by maybe talking a little bit about how to tell whether your property is impacted with a right-of-way acquisition. As Jonathan and others have talked about the concept display in the virtual room, you will see the 11 property numbers, 11 parcel numbers are identified on that layout with names associated with those. Those names are who we think currently owns the property based on tax records and deeds and so forth. And you will see a light blue line that shows the existing property lines as they are prior to our project. And then you will see a red heavier line that shows what the proposed right-of-way line will be after our project. So once you go to this display and you recognize that your property is potentially impacted by an acquisition, then I would encourage you to go to the right-of-way services portion of the virtual meeting room that will have a couple of a couple of pieces of information available in there. One being a right-of-way acquisition process display that basically will break down the right-of-way acquisition process into 5 phases. The first phase kind of being a pre-acquisition activity where a right-of-way agent would be contacting you, sharing right-of-way plans with you, showing more detail about what that right-of-way taking is, and also walking you through what to expect over the upcoming months relative to the process. Then after the pre-acquisition, we move into what is called the appraisal valuation process. That is where an independent appraiser would appraise your property to establish what the compensation is for that acquisition area. Then once the appraisal is completed, it goes through an exercise with the department to review it to make sure that adequately addresses everything that is supposed to be addressed. And then a right-of-way negotiator would reach out to you to actually make you an offer based on that appraisal report, based on fair market value. You would then have time to digest the offer, ask questions about the offer, and then hopefully come to a settlement with the department. You would sign an option to purchase based on that appraised value, and then we would proceed to closing. So that kind of outlines the process. And then there's one final phase for one of the properties there in the northeast corner of the interchange. You will see a red dot on the plans. That indicates that that property will require a residential displacement of the occupants of that dwelling. And so the 5th and final phase of the right-of-way acquisition process would be the actual relocation activities to relocate the occupant of that dwelling into a replacement dwelling that they would purchase as part of the right-of-way acquisition process. Once they know what the compensation is for the DOT transaction, they find a replacement property and they close on it, then they would be offered the opportunity to move. With all that being said, there's also a right-of-way informational brochure in the virtual room that outlines each one of those steps and provides additional detail of what an impacted property owner could expect. We anticipate to start those activities sometime over the next few months in 2023, the mid part of 2023, with those activities progressing on into 2024, and have them completed by the time construction starts in the latter part of 24 or early part of 25. And I would encourage you, if you go to the map, you go to the displays and you see that one of your property is impacted, or if someone you know is impacted, please encourage them to come to the PHOH tomorrow night. I will be there along with other right-of-way representatives, and we will be glad to sit down with a one-on-one conversation and explain this in greater detail. Again, thank you very much, Marlo, for that opportunity.
Okay, so on the environmental side, I know we earlier had a question about the 404 permit and if that was involved in this project. Amber, I'm gonna kick it back to you. Could you just talk through that 404 permit and if that's something that's in play here for Old Mill as it's proposed?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to do that. So as a part of this project, we do expect that we will be acquiring a 404 permit. It will be required. I should correct myself. We will require a 404 permit. As part of the project development process, we do look at trying to avoid the waters of the U.S. impacts when possible. And when we can't do that, we work on minimizing those. And so once we get into final design and we have the final impacts, the permit will be based on those final impacts and it would be obtained before any work in the waters of the U.S. is done. So thank you so much for that, Kyle.
I think we have a few more submitted questions in the queue, so we're trying to finalize those. So while we do, Marlo, again, we kind of talked through it earlier, but obviously this proposal involves a relocated section of that Old Mill Road and a brand new interchange. Maybe someone will be curious why we can't retrofit the existing bridge area to make it into an interchange and why that wouldn't work. Why go to all the trouble of building a brand new one?
That is a very reasonable question to ask. The existing bridge was built quite a while ago and doesn't have the standards that GDOT builds into the bridges today. We also needed all the features that have been described today by Jonathan and Ty. So for that reason, we needed to relocate Old Mill Road to the west. And for all those reasons, we want to provide upgraded facilities for based off of the needs of the current type of driver and the needs for the growing community. And so for that reason, we needed to make sure all the intersections were designed properly, the alignments were correct, and that all led to the need to build a new bridge as opposed to using the existing bridge. I will ask Ty if you can add a little more to that, any more detail as to the reasoning behind not just using the existing bridge.
Yep, absolutely. So there's actually several reasons that we didn't use the existing bridge. Number one, the bridge is only a 2-lane bridge, and the traffic that we're anticipating would be more than a 2-lane bridge can handle. So we are needing to widen out that bridge to provide some additional lanes. Another reason to not utilize that existing bridge is that some of the anticipated truck volumes and the truck traffic that we're anticipating through here could, potentially impact or damage the existing bridge. It's an older bridge, and all of that traffic could, potentially cause some issues with that. And then the third reason, or an additional reason for constructing this in a new location and not utilizing that existing bridge, is that this swell in traffic that they're going to be seeing in this area, we can direct that traffic that will be going to those developments directly to where they're supposed to be, and they won't have to use a lot of the side roads such as Old Mill Road or Davis Academy or anything like that to reach their destination. And so we won't have those trucks going through the middle of people's neighborhood there on Old Mill Road. So those are some of the primary reasons. And the third one, the fourth one, I guess, fourth point would be, by doing this, we can also minimize some of the impacts to the surrounding residents. We did look quite a bit at trying to mitigate some of these impacts on people that live in this area. Thanks for the question.
Good deal. So next, We're talking about a pretty busy interstate, you know, and traffic volumes that are increasing. Folks may be curious about noise barriers, Marlo. I know that's a favorite topic that we deal with a lot on some of these big scale projects. So we kind of talked through what goes into potential barriers and any noise analysis that we've done out there.
Yes, Kyle. It's very good that we're getting a lot of environmental interest in this project, and noise impacts is part of that environmental research that we have to do for every project. So I'll ask Amber if you can go into some detail about how assessments for noise barriers are conducted.
Yes, thank you. So the way we conduct our noise assessments is we look at the future projected traffic volumes for 20 years after we construct the project, with of course, the project alignment that we are proposing, and ultimately the alignment that is selected. And what we do is we do a model so that we know what that future condition is actually going to look like, and we determine what those sound levels are. And so as a part of this project, a noise assessment was conducted. And so the noise ranges typically, as you get further away from the interstate, it tends to be quieter. So existing levels that we looked at for this area ranged from around 56 decibels up to 73 decibels. And when we modeled this project for the build horizon, so that 2045 year, those noise levels ranged from about 60 decibels to 73 decibels. So there's a little bit of change in the area that might be heard as a result of this project. And so we also look at individual noise receivers that have areas of outdoor frequent use. So a lot of those would be residential properties to determine if we had noise impacts. And a noise impact is defined either as a substantial noise increase, which would be 15 decibels over existing, which we did not have any substantial increases on this project, or if it exceeds the noise abatement criteria of, as a residential, that would be 67 decibels, and we define a noise impact as 1 decibel lower than the noise abatement criteria of 66 decibels. And so we looked at that for residential receivers, and there was one impact identified on this project. And so, of course, as a result of that, we do look at if we're able to feasibly include any noise abatement measures, such as noise barriers. And in order to do that, they have to meet feasible requirements and reasonable cost requirements. And this project at this time is not proposing to construct any noise barriers. And again, as I pointed out, that noise level range isn't expected to change a lot in this area. So if anyone has any more information or wants it discussed in more details, again, we'll be at the public meeting tomorrow. And also, these are also summarized in the environmental assessment. Thank you so much for the question.
Thanks for that breakdown there as it pertains to the noise barriers, Amber. So we got a question that came in from Alan Grimsley. Alan, we appreciate it. Marlo, Alan's curious, how will you keep through traffic from going north on Old Mill Road?
That is a very valid question with all these changes that are occurring in the area. I will ask Ty to talk about how traffic will be prevented from going north on Old Mill Road.
Sure. So Old Mill Road is a public road, and it's going to continue to be a public road. So unless the restrictions, the truck restrictions that are currently there, any of those restrictions will be retained. So, you know, if it's currently signed as a no truck route, it will continue to be signed as a no truck route. Unfortunately, there's not much that we can do about that. We can put up the signs, but people don't always pay attention to them. The best thing to do for that, if you are experiencing problems, is to contact some of your local officials or the police. Really, that becomes sort of an enforcement issue. And unfortunately, there's only so much we can do to mitigate that problem. Thanks for the question, though.
Thanks, Ty and Alan. Appreciate you following us. I think I've seen your name pop up on some of our social media accounts. I know Georgia DOT East, so appreciate you following and kind of getting your voice heard and your opinion out there. We're very thankful for that. Looks like you got a second question, Alan, so appreciate that one too. Marlo, Alan's curious, what is the plan for lighting at this new exit? Will it be glaringly bright?
That is a very good question. I believe Amber talked a little bit about lighting in with respect to the tricolor bat and how we would have full cutoff lighting, with to prevent impacting that species. I guess I'll look again to Ty to talk some about the lighting on the project.
Sure thing, Marlo. So yes, there is some lighting proposed on this project. We did, some of the preliminary comments that we received on this, that there was some concern about some of the lighting and the potential for lighting pollution. So we did take that to heart as we were, designing our approach to the lighting here. For the most part, this new interchange will not be lit. So everywhere except for where the rest area is, will not be lit. So those merge diverge points won't be lit. The rest area, however, because it's currently lit and because it's sort of there's a potential for merging right there with the rest area traffic, we are going to be providing targeted lighting at that location. It's not going to extend all the way up the ramp. It's just going to be, right there at that merge point for the most part. Now we are going to be providing lighting, low level lighting at both of the roundabouts. That is sort of a GDOT standard, not sort of, it is a GDOT standard to provide lighting at GDOT roundabouts. So those will be lit, but again, it's a fairly low level lighting. Currently, all of the lighting that is being installed is LED lighting, and LED does not have nearly as much of the spread, the lighting spread that you may have experienced with past, sodium lighting or whatever. So this will be a much more targeted lighting. It should only illuminate the portion of the road that it's pointing at. You won't have a whole lot of spill out sideways, and you have virtually no lighting that will spill upwards. So we are really looking at trying to minimize, the potential for light pollution. We also didn't, go crazy and put lights everywhere. And I should also mention that there is also going to be some low-level lighting that continues north on that road up to the intersection where this project terminates in the north. So as you're looking at the concept here, the roundabout, the southern roundabout will have lighting, the northern roundabout will have lighting, and then that lighting will continue north all the way to the northern end of that project. There will be no lighting south of those roundabouts or south of the interchange. But great question, and thank you for that.
Thanks, Ty. So, Alan, no, doesn't sound like we're going to have glaringly bright setup out here. It seems like the lighting as it's designed is going to do its job, kind of focus more in on the roadway and try to mitigate those impacts on the exterior. So, Amber, I'm going to kind of go back to you here with another environmental question. We talked through those noise barriers and kind of what goes into that analysis. You want to do maybe a quick recap for those who may have just joined us on what we're looking at as far as the footprint out here and if there will be any noise barriers?
Sure. Yeah, I'll discuss that again. So as I mentioned, we do look at the noise and the sound levels in this area. There was one impacted home that was identified on this project. And what we have to do to look at if we can consider noise barriers, we have to follow federal policy and procedures to determine if it's cost reasonable to construct them. So barriers can be a very expensive item, and they're only benefiting certain individuals. And so as a result of that, it's required under federal policy that all states have policies of what that cost reasonable requirement is to construct a noise wall. And there's a lot of things that are important that go into that. There are a lot of noise concerns along our interstates. And so we have to make sure that we're looking at mitigation similarly along all project types. And so as a result of that, that noise cost is very important because noise walls are expensive and they're only benefiting those individuals behind that wall. So we have to follow all of those policies and procedures to ensure that those are put in equally for all parties. So I hope that helps answer that question. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Amber. And still waiting on a few more to come in. We have about 10 minutes left, 9 minutes now for those who are joining us. Marlo, just talking about the process to get to this point where we have a concept design, where we're going to the public. Maybe we could, kick to Jonathan too, after you, for some perspective on this. You just want to talk about that internal work that goes into creating something like this to get it ready for the public to view.
Yes, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to develop a concept display like you're seeing in front of you. So there's the engineering studies that are done to determine the correct alignments and the intersection control types, the interchange types, their interchange justification reports that are done and submitted to the Federal Highway Administration for review and approval because we're adding access to the interstate system. There is a lot of coordination with different subject matter experts in different areas in order to make sure that we're considering all the information that we should as these designs are being developed. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's a nice drawing that's easy to follow, and it takes a lot of work to get it to that point. I will turn to Jonathan to see what you can add to that response.
Thanks, Marlo. I really like this question because it gives us a chance to talk about all of the different efforts that have gone into getting us here. When we sit down and we have this conversation with you, it truly is the culmination of a lot of study, analysis, design, and it's all put into just a few of these pictures, a few of these documents. I use this as a reminder. Go to the website, take a look at all these things, and you can spend some time really digesting them and understanding them for yourself, especially if you live in this area or you travel in this area. I think you really benefit from spending time with this. But there is a whole process that takes us from nothing to where we are today. And we look at this, you can think of it, I guess you can think of it like a balancing act. You have a lot of different things. When you think about a design, you have a lot of different things that you need to consider. You need to consider the future, what's coming and how is that development going to play out in the future here. We want to be able to serve the people, not just that need to use the road and the facilities today, but the people who are going to use it a decade from now or 2 decades from now. Those people, we have to think about them as well. So there's specific analyses that we do from that perspective, not to just look at the present, but to look at the future. We're going to look at the traffic. We're going to look at what is the traffic that's out there right now, but also acknowledge that as development happens, as new businesses come through here, as residences begin to become more populous, there's going to be more traffic. And how are they going to use it? How do we direct the flow of that traffic to where it needs to go and keep it away from places that it does not need to go. There's a whole process to understanding that. You heard a lot about our process today for selecting an alternative that is going to be the best for solving the challenges of today and of the future. The traffic analysis that we just talked about, that's a big part of that, but there are other things that we have to consider. You've heard a lot of discussion around the idea of our environmental resources out here. And there are all kinds of things that we need to think about and we need to consider when it comes to those environmental resources. Are we being responsible with our placement of these facilities, with any impacts that happen as a result of this? How can we minimize those and put the roadway and all of these facilities in a place that is as respectful and responsible as we can be with that natural environment that's out there? You've got the existing facilities. We talked about the rest area, and we talked about the existing roads. The decisions have to be made. How are you going to connect those existing facilities into this new arrangement? So then that's when the roadway design comes in, and you're thinking about what are the best configurations. Do we put intersections? Do we put stop signs? Do we put roundabouts? There are a lot of decisions that go into that kind of thing. Well, you heard us talk about the decision of where do we put this new bridge? Where do we put this new interchange? Why wouldn't we put it right back on top of the bridge that's already out there right now? And you heard us talk a little bit about that before. The bridge that's out there is not, it doesn't have the right number of lanes. The age of the bridge does not work in its favor. The ramps that need to come from the interstate to and from the side road have to be considered. So it's a very detailed and integrated process. And I even talked earlier about how that process works with checking in with you, with hearing your feedback. You've heard a lot from Kyle today that we really do genuinely appreciate any time that you have feedback for us. We want to hear that. We want to understand if you live in the area, if you drive through the area, if you have thoughts, we want to hear those because you may know something about this location that we need to incorporate. And so it's something that we welcome. So it's a great process, and as you've heard, we have to think about right of way. We have to think about the properties that are out there and how do we communicate with the homeowners or the property owners that are out there. And Phil went through some great discussion about how all that factors in. So it's a very detailed process. I welcome anybody who has specific questions about the process from beginning to where we are now. Please, if you haven't already, ask your questions, come out and visit us in person at this PHOH in person tomorrow night. And then there's still more process to go beyond these conversations that we have right now. We're not at final design yet. And so before construction begins, there's still more work to be done. So this is all part of that process. Marlo, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about it because it is a very interesting thing, at least to me. And I think it's valuable to understand how we got to where we are today. So with that, Kyle, I think I'll hand it back over to you.
Awesome. So, as y'all can see, there's a lot of work on the internal end just to get things to where they are today. And we appreciate y'all joining us for this session. We've been hyping up the fact that we're coming to the South Walton Center tomorrow as well for an additional avenue in person. You're going to see a lot of these same faces there that you'll be able to engage with. Basically, we're bringing all the same information that we're showcasing in a virtual format, and it's available at any time on our website as well. And again, that comment period runs through Monday, May 1st. So definitely come see us there if you haven't already. Share with your family and your friends. And Marlo, looks like we have about a minute or two left. Anything we want to say just about, obviously, GDOT has a responsibility to improve the infrastructure when there are economic development opportunities and expansion. I know JDA has been working in this area for 15 or 20 years to have some build out. There's already stuff that's come to this area. It sounds like there's more planned. Maybe just want to talk at a high level about how we collaborate with local entities and try to make things better for all users.
Yes, certainly, Kyle. You touched on it perfectly. This project anticipates the economic development that's going on in the area. and we are providing the infrastructure to accommodate it. We're not just looking at existing developments, existing traffic volumes, but we're looking to the future and what's coming. And so we coordinate with the Joint Development Authority to ensure that, you know, we have a full understanding of what developments are planned, and that what we're providing will actually serve the community in the way that GDOT wants to do and provide by providing increased mobility and enhanced safety for the area to serve the community, all users. That's a great question, Kyle.
Thanks, Marlo. So time's up. The clock has struck 1:30. So appreciate everybody joining us today for this public meeting, which again is part of that public hearing open house process for the I-20 at Old Mill Road Interchange project. Quick reminder too that a virtual recording of this virtual event is going to be available on that project website. We hope to have that posted by Tuesday, April 25th. If you have any further questions or would like to leave additional feedback, please visit that project website or contact us by the phone or email that you see on your screen. So thanks everybody for your time. Thanks all the folks behind the scenes that made this virtual event possible, and also all our subject matter experts on your screen. So everybody be good, and we'll talk to y'all soon.